Welcome to the Martial Arts of Selling. This is my weekly sales training, and I got a very exciting, I think it's a very powerful and basic fundamental training that I think if you really grasp it, you apply it, you make it part of you, two things are going to happen. Actually, three things. You're going to increase your value as a salesperson, as an entrepreneur, as a closer. Number two, you're going to see your sales grow. Number three, you're going to build some tremendous amount of profitable relationships. And obviously, your cash flow is going to increase. So that's very exciting. Okay. Now, how to close more deals. We're going to focus on step number one. Okay. And step number two and step number three will be coming up probably in the next couple days. But I want to set the tone for step two and step three. Now, step number one, I call it the opening of the call. Okay. Because everything we do, that's the initial, is always the opening, right? When you meet new people, whether it's at a seminar or a network event or a social gathering and you don't know people, someone's going to take the initial action, right? It's called the opening or the introduction. And that's the most important thing you can do because it will determine the outcome of that conversation. So the opening, I call it setting the tone for the relationship, setting the tone for the phone call, setting the tone for a text message or an email or a Zoom call. It doesn't matter. Whoever takes the initial step is going to set the tone. And I think when you take the right step, you're going to produce the right, powerful, and effective engagement. Because without engagement, you don't have anything, right? So let me give you an analogy. It's like when you go to a movie, back in the day before social media and things like that, I was producing movies. The most important thing that we did was get a good trailer that we could promote and push 30 seconds to maybe a minute max, where people start to see and get excited about that trailer that they can't wait for the movie to come out in theaters or come out on video. Now in this age, coming out on Netflix or coming out on video or whatever the case may be. But there's always something that initially got you engaged to take that action to pursue it, right? So that's what selling is. That's what storytelling is. That's what I do is. We tell stories. But a story doesn't happen unless you do the initial introduction. So that's the opening. So the opening is like the movie trailer. You want to get the prospect to watch the full movie. And you're the director, and they're the lead actor and actress, right? So your job as an entrepreneur, a salesperson, a closer, a small business owner is to set the tone for the initial or the opening of a potential relationship. Does that make sense? Now, before we dig further into the topic, if you're watching this on my channel, do me a favor, hit the subscription button below, share your comments, whether you like it or not. Tell me what your thoughts are, and also, share the video with others and smash that like button. Now, okay, so there's 3 to 4 major things that should be taking place in the initial opening of any conversation. For me, it's always a phone call. So I'm going to use that as the premise, okay? So you have to understand when I cold call prospects, I already know who they are. I targeted them. I did some research. I know that I can help them, and I know that they need my services. But I also know this, that they don't know who I am. And when I call them, they're going to have a certain mindset, a certain attitude. I already know that going into the initial call. So I have 3 to 5 seconds to accomplish 3 things. Number 1, trust. Number 2, value. And number 3, respect. Not in those orders, but those are the 3 things. So I got 3 to 5 seconds to do that. That is my movie trailer. I have to get them engaged in what I'm about to say, but they're not just going to give in to me. I have to earn that, right? So how do I earn that? Well, I have to be ready for their objections. I have to be ready for what they're going to say. And because I've been doing it a long time, I could predict 99.9% of the time what they're thinking, what they're going to say. I've just been doing it so long time. Okay? So I know three things. Number one is they're going to probably have the mindset they're not interested, but they don't even know what I'm offering. But they in their mind, they're not going to interested. That's their weapon. That's the defense mechanism that doesn't work with me. Number two, they're going to be thinking they're too busy, even though they're on the phone with me. And number three, they don't have any money. Those are the three major things. But I diffuse that in the initial call, in the initial contact. So I want you to think about that. Have you ever been in situations where, you get all these leads, you make phone call, they tell you to call them back, they're busy right now, or then, they don't have any money, can you call them back? Have you ever experienced that? It sucks, right? That's because you didn't do your job. You didn't do the work. You're not a real doctor in your profession. You can't allow that to happen in the initial stages. You can't. I won't. I don't. Just not going to happen. I'll hang up the phone before any of that takes place. So, how do you get them, or how do you overcome the not interested that might come up, that they're too busy, and that they have no money? How do you do that in the initial stages? This is where the movie trailer comes in, right? Does that make sense? So, this is very, very important. Also, you have to know that everything you do in life begins cold. Everything begins like that. Everything that you do. You go to a social event and you want to meet new people. You don't know them, they don't know you, but someone's got to take the initiative, right? And you warm up to it. You start to warm the lead or warm the person you're talking with, right? When you go to a network event or a seminar, you're going to meet people, right? You don't know them, but hopefully you make friends with them or they become clients. Well, you got to take the initial step, and that's very important. So here's what happened. In the initial step, in the initial stages for me, I have to show that I have some perceived value because they don't know who I am yet. Right? That perceived value has to be very powerful. They have to know that I'm valuable. How do I do that? I offer value, I give value, and I show value. They have to know, they have to feel and sense by the words I say, how I say it, for them to give me the opportunity to earn their business. Because once I earn trust and respect and I show value, I have a better chance of earning their business or their relationship, right? Does that make sense? So, how do I overcome and how you could overcome the initial stages of them trying to get you off the phone or not responding to your email or your text messages or your Zoom or whatever they can, well, however you initially do it, it works every single time. So when I get a prospect on the phone, this is the first thing I say. I'll be Mr. Client. My name is Paul Cruz with Paul Cruz Sales Agency. Hope you're having a fantastic day. I will be brief and to the point. I know that you're busy. I'm going to repeat that. I will be brief and to the point. I know that you're busy. Why is that a powerful statement? Because you're telling them, I understand that this is frustrating for you. I understand that you're busy and that you don't want to waste your time. And I also know I'm not going to waste your time because I'm valuable and you need to listen to me. That's what that statement does psychologically to the prospect. Because you didn't let them speak. You addressed what they were thinking and they love that. Wow, that guy knew what I was thinking. Okay. Now, let's say after I make that statement, they go, I'm busy. Right? I said, Mr. Client, I understand and respect that. Do you get a lot of these calls? Think about that. I'm breaking the defense mechanism. Do you get a lot of these calls? Why do I make a statement question? Because they're almost forced to answer that question. Because out of respect, human nature is to answer a question. But it's not what you say or what you ask, is how you ask it. It's a sympathy question. Mr. Klein, I understand and respect that. Do you get a lot of these calls? Or you could say, you get a lot of these calls, right? You could say one or the other. I use them both depending on the tonality they have. You get a lot of these calls. It's an assumptive question. In other words, you're making a statement with the question, you understand, let's move forward. Does that make sense? So that's what I do. Now, once I address that I understand you get a lot of these calls, now when they answer, now they've basically given me the stage to potentially start transitioning to step number two. But here's how I finish it. I say, Mr. Klein, I would like to ask you a few important questions about your customers, your business, and the type of customers you would like to see and have in the next 12 months. And if I could be of value to you and show you that I could help you, then maybe we could do some business. If not, we part ways as friends. Fair enough? Most people say yes because the last thing they hear is whether it's today or the next 6 months. They're going to remember the 6 months. So in their mind, they're already saying, well, it's going to be 6 months anyway. But meanwhile, I'm trying to earn the business today. You can't have 6 months unless you earn it in the beginning, right? So that's the psychology to that question. Does that make sense? So you got to remember, they have to feel that you're valuable. They have to trust you that you have something for them. They have to respect that you know what you're talking about and that you could be the man, you could be the person that they may need. And they may not realize that. Does that make sense? And that's how you get through the initial stages. Now, my perceived value just started transitioning to increasing my value. Why? Because I understood what they were thinking and the frustrations they have. I understood that they get a lot of calls. I understand that they're busy, but they're not busy enough to listen that they can make more money or produce more sales or grow their cash flow, right? That's what they're in business for. They need to know that their time is going to be not wasted because at that point, their time is money. My time is about value, and then the money comes. Does that make sense? So that's the opening of the phone call. That's so important. If you could address that and it could apply to any product you sell, it works. I've been using it for 30 years and I won't change it because it works. But if you apply these little techniques, you'll be surprised how much further you get into a sales presentation, or I call it the selling presentation. And that's step number two. Step number two is the body of the phone call. Okay, I won't get into that today, but I just want you to know, understand part one. Part one is the most important step. Step number two is the most valuable step because that's what 90% of the sales is solidified. And then number three is the real value. Step two is the intrinsic value. Step three is the real value. What do I mean by real? That's where the relationship begins because that's when monetary takes place or monetary exchange takes place. They buy into the services, right? So, step number one on how to close more deals is the opening, setting the tone for the relationship. That's what step number one is. Does that make sense? I hope this was helpful. Again, if you're watching this on my channel, smash the like button, share your comments, and also hit the subscription button below. And stay tuned for step number two. It's going to blow your mind because this is where the rubber is going to meet the road. This is where you're going to learn and know how valuable you are and if you're going to close more deals. Step number two, stay tuned. I'm excited. And until we speak again, I say goodbye. This is Paul Cruz with the martial arts of selling. Have a great day. Talk to you later.